Hello everyone, Tally and Farrell here from Board of It. Today we're going to be discussing the Clockwork Prince, which is the AI that's recommended to use if you want to play a game of Oath, solo or with two players. We do have a full review of Oath, which we'll link in the description box below.
So we should say that we've only played with the Clockwork Prince 3 times, and that was with us together, but we did actually play it literally 3 times in a row. So it gave us a good overview. And essentially the way it works is you use the back of the Chancellor board and it has this kind of setup. And you have this sheet which you move tokens across and it kind of follows the arrows and that shows what action. So it's like kind of a very logical layout of, you know, does it want to control the most sites? Okay, well then it's going to muster troops. It's going to trade for favor to muster troops. And then it's going to try and attack when it's ready and then take the site and then it kind of continues right in this loop.
I like that it's called the Clockwork Prince's mind.
Yeah.
That's a big jumble there in his mind.
It's quite nice. I mean, the thing is, this is quite terrifying when you look at it for the first time. It's actually not that bad to follow. But yeah, I'd say first comment is the rules. One of the problems that we didn't mention in our main review is that there's like 7 different sheets of paper with all the rules. And there's player guides and all this. And all of the rules are just like on this double-sided A4 sheet in tiny font. And I don't know why it just didn't have a little separate rule book or stretch it out or... Because it seems quite like crammed in. But anyway, it's not like too bad to learn. But so why don't you tell about our experience with Clockwork Prince?
Yeah, we basically just found that it didn't particularly behave like a real player would.
Yeah.
It seemed to have this issue where it was either extremely overpowered and there was nothing we could do to fight it. It had a lot of war bands. It had 16 or something on its board at one time. In a normal game of Oath, if you weren't using that, that's just so unrealistic. It would never happen that a player could ever muster that much. Or it was kind of underpowered because it had already dumped all of its troops on the sites. And once they were on the sites, they don't move back to the board. So when he comes to muster again, there's nothing there. And he just gets stuck in controlling these sites. There's nothing you can do about it because he's got 16 on there. There's no way you can beat it. But then it can't do anything else either. Yeah. So it kind of just played not very realistically. And we've played with other AI bots before, like the ones in Root. Yeah. And we really, really like the Clockwork expansion for Root. We do actually find that it simulates the third player pretty well. Yeah, whereas in this case, it really didn't.
Yeah, I mean, just touching on the break, like you said, I think underpowered, but I also find it basically totally breaks down and gets stuck in a loop. And that's the thing, because it's like, in one example, the goal was to control the most sites. And as you say, because it dumps, so when it wins a battle, what it's told to do is dump all of its warbands equally among all the sites it's trying to control. But if it's only attacking one, this means that it dumps everything it has on its board onto that one site. So after it attacks 2 sites, it's like out of warbands and it couldn't attack. So it just got stuck trying to gain favor and trying to muster, but it can't muster because it doesn't have any warbands. So it looped, and all it did was steal all the money out of the favor bank. So it ended up with 15 favor on it. And yeah, it basically meant that there was no third player attacking the winner of that game or whoever's in the lead.
Which would happen in a real game. You know? Once it gets towards the end of the game and one person is going to satisfy the win condition, all the other players go after them to stop them. Whereas the Clockwork Prince didn't. It just didn't simulate a real game in that way at all. And like you said, it had so much favour on its board, but nothing. It couldn't do anything with the favour. It was taking the money so we couldn't have it, but not doing anything with it. Yeah,
it was making the game more frustrating for us because it got stuck. And yeah, touching on the overpoweredness as well, that's the thing. The way it works is that it really collects a lot of resources and warbands and things very easily with no real issue for it to get. There's no barrier for it to get this stuff right. It just accumulates incredible amounts, and it's things that players could never accumulate in the real game. And it just makes you feel really frustrated because honestly, in like the second turn of the game, a player might have one sight, and then the Clockwork Prince will show up with 12 warbands and roll like 14 dice at you, and you've got like one defense.
You've got no hope.
It's like embarrassing, really. But yeah, so that's the thing. And I think personally for me, it just felt really frustrating because it didn't feel fair. Like, it's one thing, it's not that it has to particularly play like another player, but people want this sense of fairness, and it just never felt fair, because if it wanted something from you, the way it works, because there's no barriers, it will get it from you. And that was the issue.
That's true.
I mean, yeah, what I would say was that I think this is a complex game, and it's quite, like, obviously a lot of effort to design something like this. I think it's it is well done, and like the system it follows is fine. It's just that there's definitely problems. Like we say, overpowered, broken, and neither of those are things you want or make you feel good or help you to enjoy the game.
Yeah.
So the bottom line, I guess, is kind of, this isn't something until maybe the kinks are worked out that you want to have to play it 2 players or solo.
Yeah, I can't imagine just going into this game and playing with that straight away. Yeah. I was confused playing it, regardless, without the Clockwork Prince. And yeah, if you had to include that as well, because I think another thing is that the board is quite different, and honestly, you controlled it, right? But I don't really know what was going on because the board is different, and it's like, I don't know, would you say it's asymmetric in some ways because it has this kind of different way that it works, whereas the other players, it's not asymmetric, and it's like powers. I don't know. I didn't really know what you were doing. If you, maybe that's, the more you play with it, you could get more people to control it so they understand. But when you were following the Clockwork Prince's mind, the flow, I was just sat there like, I don't know what's going on here, but sure.
But yeah, I think it's interesting that you say about maybe more players could control it, because I don't think you'd actually want that, because it is a little tedious to learn, and then to have to put more people through that, it's like...
Yeah.
But I guess only really 2 people would need to know how to use it, so one.
That's true.
But yeah, I think the bottom line is essentially it's a good attempt, but it doesn't quite work. There's definitely much bigger issues here, probably because of the complexity of the game, than there is in the Clockwork expansion for Root. I think that's really well done.
Yeah.
And it actually really feels like other players are playing with you. And it just doesn't feel the same here. I think if it's working, it feels frustrating, it's bottom line, and then it can very easily not work. And I think because the Clockwork Prince can either play as a Chancellor, which I think is the optimal way for it to be, or it can be an Exile. And somebody told me this on Board Game Geek, but I don't know how verified it is. But apparently the Exile aspect was added later, and it wasn't as maybe fleshed out. And they kind of added it as a way to continue your Chronicle if you beat the Clockwork Prince. So then it's not Chancellor again.
Yeah.
And that one is definitely the one that is more likely to break as well.
Yeah. Do you think it's like because some part of this strategy of this game is being a little bit sneaky and keeping your cards close to your chest about what you're doing, and obviously there's no human element there for doing that maybe that's why it doesn't quite fit in as well. You have to be a bit scheming and hiding what you're doing from other players, and obviously it can't do that. So
yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, so it was a bit of a miss for us. I mean, the thing is, we did play with it 3 times in a row, so it can't be that bad.
Yeah.
And we mean literally in a row, in one sitting. But yeah,
would you say that if you were only going to play with the Clockwork Prince, it's not worth to get the game right. But then it's fine because we will play it with more players, and we have, and we tried that out, but it wouldn't be our only way of playing Oath. And if it was, then
I would definitely
recommended.
I would definitely play with it again. It's just not optimal. I think it's just you want something that works every time, especially if you're paying this kind of money for a game and it doesn't. I wouldn't be surprised though. The thing is, I guess if you stick with it, I'm very sure there'll be fan-made like variants of this, probably pretty soon. And there's also a kind of errata, I guess you could say, although it's a fan one, I don't think it's official yet, that they say rather than dumping all of the warbands on one site, to treat the board as a site, so then you put them evenly. So if you have 10, only 5 go on the site, and then you keep some back, and it allows it to work more efficiently. And yeah, I've got to recommend, they basically say use that if you're playing it for 2-player, and use the original if you're playing it solo. But it's just these kind of things I like. I don't know, it's something that fans did very quickly and it wasn't picked up in playtesting. But that's basically our just little opinion piece on the Clockwork Prince. Like we say, we haven't played with it hundreds of times, so you could also call it a first impressions. But thanks for watching. If you subscribed because of the Earth video and you're here to watch this, thanks a lot for your sub. It really means a lot to us. And for everyone that watched Oath and is watching this. And we'll be back on Sunday with a normal review.
Bye.
Bye.